What if I told you that being good with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are? That some of the richest, most financially secure people didn't make their wealth by outsmarting Wall Street, but by understanding something far deeper, something that most personal finance books totally miss? Today, we're diving into one of the most talked about books in the world of money, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This isn't just a book about saving or investing. It's a book about behavior, about the stories we tell ourselves, about why two people with the same income can end up in completely different places financially. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's explore the money truths that actually matter. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty spending money? Or looked at your bank account and wondered, why does this feel so emotional? That's because money isn't just numbers, it's psychology. And Morgan Housel? He gets that better than almost anyone. Housel was a former columnist at the Wall Street Journal and the Motley Fool. He's not your typical finance guy throwing charts at your face. He's a storyteller. And when The Psychology of Money dropped in 2020, it wasn't just a bestseller. It became a phenomenon. Translated into over 50 languages, sold millions of copies, gifted by CEOs to their teams, recommended in book clubs, quoted by billionaires. Because it finally put words to what most of us feel about money but never really understand. Let's break it down. The book is made up of 20 short chapters. Each one is a lesson, and each lesson hits hard. Right from chapter 1, Housel smacks us with a reality check. He says doing well with money has little to do with intelligence. It has more to do with how you behave. Think about that. Saving, patience, not panicking in a downturn, being reasonable instead of rational. Those are behaviors. And behaviors are driven by emotions, habits, and experiences, not IQ. One of the most powerful stories Housel shares is about Ronald Read. Ever heard of him? Probably not. Ronald was a janitor in Vermont. He worked at a gas station, swept floors at a local department store, and lived frugally his whole life. But when he died in 2014, he left behind an $8 million fortune. He wasn't a genius investor. He just consistently saved, invested in blue-chip stocks, and held them for decades. No big risks, no trading, just time and patience. Compare that to Richard Fosconi, a Harvard-educated former Merrill Lynch executive, lived in a massive mansion, owned multiple homes, went bankrupt in the 2008 financial crisis. Same world, different results. Why? Behavior. Housel's point is crystal clear: wealth is what you don't see. It's not the car. It's not the house. It's the money quietly compounding in the background while you're not paying attention. Let that sink in. Another gem? The concept of enough. This one punched me in the gut. Housel says, knowing when you have enough is one of the most powerful money skills you can ever learn. He tells the story of a conversation between Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller, two famous authors. They were at a party hosted by a billionaire. Vonnegut said, "Joe, how does it feel knowing that our host made more money yesterday than your books? Catch-22 has made in its entire history?" Heller replied, "I've got something he'll never have enough." Think about that. How often do we chase more without asking what it's for? What's your enough? Tell me in the comments. Now let's talk luck. Housel dedicates an entire chapter to how luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. He says, never judge success or failure by the outcome alone, because life is messy. Bill Gates became Bill Gates because of intelligence and ambition, yes, but also because he went to one of the only high schools in America with a computer. Meanwhile, a classmate of his, Kent Evans, was just as smart, just as driven. But he died in a mountaineering accident in high school, gone before he had the chance. We don't like to think about luck, but we have to. It keeps us humble. Another idea that changed how I think about money? Tails drive everything. Housel explains how most big outcomes in investing, business, even life come from a tiny number of events. He says Warren Buffett's wealth doesn't come from being the best investor. It comes from being a consistent investor for over 75 years. Buffett made 99% of his wealth after turning 50. Imagine that. And yet we obsess over short-term results. Housel urges us to zoom out. Think decades, not days. Plan for the long run. And embrace the fact that a few tail events, big wins, will shape your entire financial life. Now, let's talk about something super relatable: spending. Housel has a whole chapter called Wealth is What You Don't See. He talks about how we often spend money to signal status, the fancy car, the designer clothes. But true wealth? It's invisible. It's savings. It's flexibility. It's the ability to wake up and say, I don't have to do that today if I don't want to. That's freedom. He shares a story of a guy in a Porsche speeding down the road. People see the car and think, wow, what a car. But they don't think, wow, what a smart guy. Because flashy stuff doesn't always give you the respect you're chasing. Housel calls it the paradox of wealth signaling. Now, how about failure? There's a chapter called You'll Change. He writes that long-term financial planning is hard because your goals will change. The person you are at 25 is not the person you'll be at 45. That's why flexibility is key. He recommends making room for the unknown. Build margins. Expect surprises. One of the most emotional chapters is about saving money without a specific reason. He says save just to have options, to reduce anxiety, to give yourself time to think when life throws you curveballs. That's powerful, because sometimes peace of mind is the best return on investment. And if you've ever felt bad about being a cautious investor, this book is for you. Housel defends being conservative. He says it's okay to seek security over maximizing returns. If your goal is peace, not power, you're doing just fine. Now here's a curveball. He argues that reasonable, rational. He says people make better financial decisions when they're reasonable, not obsessively logical, because life is emotional and finance is personal. Want to know my favorite line in the whole book? Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. So, why has this book struck such a deep chord? Because it's not telling you how to beat the market. It's telling you how to beat yourself, your impulses, your fear, your greed. It's a mirror, not a manual. And in a world obsessed with hot stocks and crypto trends, the psychology of money reminds us what actually matters: patience, humility, flexibility, gratitude, and above all, behavior. This book is personal finance therapy, and I mean that in the best way. Let me leave you with this. If you've ever felt like money was confusing, overwhelming, or just not your thing, read this book. It'll change how you see everything, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What's your relationship with money? What habits are you proud of? What do you want to change? Drop it in the comments. And if you got something valuable from this video, give it a like, share it with a friend who needs to hear this, and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the books that actually make us better. Thanks for watching. And remember, wealth isn't just about money. It's about freedom. It's about control. And it's about living life on your terms. See you in the next one.